Welcome to the Royal Road School of Carmelite Prayer. At present, we are reading an article entitled Love4Love, the life and works of Saint Teresa of Jesus, or Teresa of Avila, written by Edith Stein, Sister Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. And we are looking at chapter 13, the spread of the Reform. So no provincial was to have the right to hinder their foundation or to involve himself in their affairs. When he returned to Madrid, Father Rubio spoke enthusiastically to the king about Teresa and her work. Philip II asked for her prayers and those of her daughters, and from then on, he was the most powerful friend and protector of the Reform. After returning to Rome, the Father General Rubio gave Saint Teresa even more power. He told her to found 2 monasteries for men according to the primitive rule. If she could obtain the permission of the present provincial and that of his predecessor. This permission was obtained for her by the Bishop of Avila, who himself had been the first to express the wish for monasteries of friars of the Reform. Teresa now found herself in an unusual position. Instead of a quiet little monastery to which she could retreat with a few selected souls, she was now to found an entire order for men and women. And only a poor, unshod Carmelite was there to accomplish this, even though furnished with permits and the best wishes, but without any means for initiating the work. In other words, she had no money, and without any other support than that of the Lord. But this support sufficed. Before long, what was most important for a monastery of men appeared, the first friars. While she was making the first foundation for nuns in Medina del Campo, the prior of the Carmelite monastery of the mitigated rule was there. Father Antonio de Heredia energetically stood by Teresa's side. When she told him of her plan, he declared himself ready to be the first male discalced Carmelite. Teresa was pretty surprised, and she was not absolutely happy, because she did not fully credit him with having the strength to sustain the primitive rule. However, he stayed firm in his decision. A few days later, a companion for him appeared who was most satisfactory to Teresa. At that time, his name was John of St. Matthias, who from his early youth had lived a life of prayer and the strictest self-denial. He had gained the permission of his superior to follow the primitive rule personally. Not satisfied with this, he was thinking of becoming a Carthusian. Teresa persuaded him instead to become the living cornerstone of the Carmelite order of the primitive rule. Sometime later, a little house in Durello, a hamlet between Avila and Medina del Campo, was offered to Teresa for the planned foundation. It was in miserable condition, but neither Teresa nor the 2 fathers were taken aback by it. Father Antonio still needed some time to end his priorship and put all of his affairs in order. In the meantime, St. John joined Holy Mother to acquaint himself with the spirit and the rule of the life of the Reform under her personal direction. Amen. So we're learning about Teresa founding monasteries for men, and her idea was that these men would accompany the sisters, and she felt that the friars needed to have the same spirituality and the way of looking at things as did the nuns. So she was delighted when Father Rubio from Rome allowed her to found these monasteries. To be continued. Amen.